Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fourth webinar for the PHIVE webinar series. This one on games and gamification and heritage being used within schools and museums as a powerful way to communicate cultural heritage. We have three fabulous speakers with us today, one of them being our own Skulli Gunnarsson from the Gunnar Gunnarsson Institute at Skurklaster in Iceland, and we will be speaking first. And we're also joined with Sif Bouldersdottir from Locatify, which is, you're in Sweden, but based in Iceland. And you are she's the sales and marketing director at Locatify, which is a platform for location-based storytelling and gamification apps. And then we'll be joined by Jonathan Richter, who's the president and CEO of iLearn, also known as the Immersive Learning Research Network, which is a network of developers, educators, and research professionals developing the potential for immersive learning. He's joining us from Montana, so it's a bit early, so I'm sure he will appear in our stream very soon. But welcome everybody, and hopefully we will have a nice presentation, but also discussion out of this, because there's some quite geographical scope in our presenters and also in the themes and topics that we're talking about. So Skulli, if you would like to kick off. Oh, and I should probably say who I was.
Yes, you might do.
All right, I'm Catherine Ancasti. I'm part of PHIVE, but from the University of St. Andrews, and with the research group Open Virtual Worlds, and will be your MC. So Skulli.
So, thank you, Catherine. And yes, I'm going to speak to you a bit about game-based approach to heritage. And I'm just going to share my screen here with you. So there we go. And so I'm speaking to you here from Iceland, actually, from the Center of Culture here in Skriðuklaustur in East Iceland. But I want to tell you a bit about this idea, let's play with heritage, and how that came into discussion in the Cine project, and then I will give you an example of how we have been utilizing that concept in more ways here at Skriðuklaustur in connection with tourism and heritage. So it all started in a way in a seminar and think tank that was part of the Cine project and was in February 2018. And then we came off with this title, Let's Play with Heritage, and had a wonderful one-day seminar there with great speakers and workshops as well, and demonstrations of all kinds. So that was a very creative event, and actually we can say that it ended then with that I was asked to make a course for the University of Iceland in gamification and cultural communication. So that was one of the outputs from this seminar there. But there are several NPA projects that we are related to, and this webinar is part of the PHIVE, and so we are actually giving disseminating the outputs from Stratus and Cine and more good projects that are funded by Interact program and other EU funds. But to the topic, what is gamification, and how can we use this game-related things to actually get more out of our cultural communication and get more interest and get more usage. The general definition, of course, is this, well, when we are using mechanics and dynamics of games in different contexts, but we more in these projects that we are in, we just use the gamification in much broader sense in a way. We can say that we are talking more about not only gamification but also just the game design, game theory, and not least how we use the technology from the game industry and to actually communicate the cultural heritage, like virtual reality and when we are starting to use the game engines like Unreal and Unity to really explore the past. So just run this short video here, which gives you an idea. Well, you're there in East Iceland, where we have this ruins of a 16th century monastery, but then also this beautiful mansion of Gunnar Gunnarsson, the Icelandic writer, where we have then exhibitions. And one of the things that we did in the Synod project was actually to build just a special game for the smartphones that you could use to get more information and play around in our exhibitions and also in the ruins of the old monastery from the 16th century. So that was one of the things that we did in the Synod project. And another thing that was to write a practical handbook with guidelines and examples on gamification and game-based approach to cultural heritage, which I'm the author of, and it's accessible there online on a web format under synodgamification.com. And you see there, we say that we don't grow out of playing anymore. Now the game just grows, the games just grow with us. And I think that is actually the main truth and the main inspiration for using game and game-based approach more in communicating the cultural heritage. So new generations, they are even more raised up with games and, well, of course, the computer games and not just smartphone games and all kinds of games that people are playing. And now actually the games, I mean, they are also officially recognized as sport. So people are competing in it worldwide and have world championship in games and things like that. So it's all much more about games than when I was growing up. Then it was just, okay, we just grew up and became adults and stopped playing. But that's not the case anymore. So younger generations, they actually expect us to have something playful when they are coming to our museums and visitor centers and things like that. So gamification is really important in tourism and for museums, not least, and heritage sites. And here we have a list of 10 ways of gamifying a bit the visitor experience. And I have underlined the parts that we have in some ways tested here, but probably many museums and heritage organizations have touched on some of this, but they could maybe go deeper into it. So why should we gamify the visitor's experience? There are several reasons, but these are maybe the main reasons. It, of course, increase the interest in the place and in broad sense in the region and the whole environment. And if you give a good experience, then you get a good review. So it's also part of the marketing thing to have that. And it also is a tool for us to draw the attention to what we actually want the visitors to learn more about. And we can also use it to control the flow of visitors to places less known or to something that really is not on the map or on the bucket list of the tourist. And then the main thing is, of course, that good experience and creates emotions, which makes the trip more memorable, and it gives us the opportunity to well, it often ends up on social media, which is quite good today and part of the marketing. So how to gamify the visitor's experience? We have to bear a few things in mind, and of course we have to start with to find out our ultimate goal. It has to be good and clear, and so good to discuss that and even take a little slow to analysis on it. Then the core thing is, of course, what is your story? There is nothing in cultural heritage communication without a story. There's always story that we have to, the narrative that we have to create. And the narrative is, of course, based then on the resources that we have. So we have to think about that. What do we have to work with? Then we can choose the form and media that we want to use. It's not necessarily, well, you don't necessarily have to use always computer or a smartphone. I mean, pen and paper is still valid just for a good game, or to gamify a little the visit of the gastronomy museum, for example. But the fifth thing is actually this: how do we get the visitors to play? And that is often the main problem. It's actually because we know that people don't like so much to download apps to their phones, and then we have to somehow give the visitors notice of the game, that they can play something and they can take part in this, but something we have to allow them into it by having some prizes and rewards, and that can get them on the game. But now I want to tell you a little bit about an example that we had here at Skriðuklaustur, and it's actually from the whole region in a way. So in the year 2020, when we saw here in the east of Iceland that we would not receive any foreign tourists due to the corona, then we also knew that we could expect a lot of Icelanders and Icelandic families to come here to the east. So we thought, okay, how can we let these Icelandic families go to more places and learn more about our local heritage by using gamification and gamify a little their visit to the east. So we made this scavenger hunt and used the content management system of Locatify and their nice app that Siv will tell you more about after me. And we found the story and based the story on an old folk tale here about the origin of the Lagavulsvur monster, which has been for centuries here in our big lake. And then we referred a little bit to Tolkien's Lord of the Rings and took into it folklore, fairy tales, cultural remains, and then some heroes from the Icelandic sagas to be a kind of a storytellers and guides for the players. So the game was set up in this way. And the players, they needed to go to specific places in a big area. And so if you would like to visit all the places, then you would have to drive some 700 kilometers. So maybe it was not very not so good for the environment. But at each place you got a challenge, and and the storytellers or the heroes from the Icelandic sagas, they told you something about the place and warned you if there was something like a ghost or an elf that you had to be careful. And then if you managed to solve the challenge, then you got a virtual room on your phone screen, and you could use that one to find out. Well, you put it on the paper map that we had along with this, both for marketing the game and also to have a kind of a double game in it. So you had to translate the rune into alphabetic character, and then you would get the keyword to find out where the gold of the worm was hidden. So yeah, there you just see the triangles. That are all the places where we had challenges and some stories. And you can see there on the right side, that is how the map looks in the content management system of Locatify. We of course use the back side of the map to give suggestions for day tours for the tourists to go around here in this region, and with some nice information and alluring information, a kind of to let people go on a drive from the camping sites and have a good day and playing also the game at the same time. So the local characters there from the Icelandic sagas, they were just in audio, but that was really enough. And we heard from some of the users, some of the players, from the kids of the families, that they really got them. So if there was someone saying, "Oh, you have to watch out for the ghost who is at this place," the kids even sometimes just didn't go out of the car and sent their parents to solve the challenge. And the target groups were, of course, the tourists Icelandic tourists in the region. So we only made this in Icelandic actually, and families with children 6 to 12. But gamers of all ages, they enjoyed the game. So, for example, on the scoreboard of the game, because there was, of course, a scoreboard, on the top for a long time were two ladies in their 60s. So, yeah, gamers are everywhere. But that was my presentation about this, and I hope you enjoyed it, and we can discuss it later.
That's great, Scully. Thank you. I don't know, do you want to take any questions or discussion? Do you want to have a bit of discussion before while it's fresh, and then before moving to SIF, or do you want to do it?
Well, I think the presentation from Siv will maybe relate to it, because she will just tell us more about the system there. So
okay,
I think we can just take the discussions, questions afterwards.
Well, we have plenty of time, so to have discussion and SIF, take your time as well. Just realized there was a bit of a time difference with Jonathan, so he will be here, but he'll be here on the hour.
Yeah. Okay.
So we've got time, so we can maybe have a discussion after. But okay, that's great. Okay, if you're ready to continue on and speak to your presentation, SIF.
Yeah, should I start? Okay.
Sure.
Let's see. There we go. And so, do you see my presentation now? I wanted to talk about gamifying the learning experience for heritage sites with location-based app content. And Locatify's part in making stories of the past come to life. I'm going to start by presenting myself. I am Sif Baldursdóttir. I am the Sales and Marketing Director of Locatify. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the company, our philosophy, and our products, and how we enable gamification or for any type of learning experience, really. So Locatify is an Icelandic software development company founded in 2009 with the goal of harnessing the latest mobile technology to share local stories with travelers. The company was founded by Steinun, who is a teacher, and Leifur, who is a programmer. They're married. They strive to combine or marry, if you prefer, a passion for education with a commitment to technologically driven solutions. So Locatify uses location technology to trigger media content in the right places. Usually we use GPS outdoors, and indoors we use Bluetooth low energy beacons for proximity and ultra wideband for precise indoor positioning. But as in some cases, we have used ultra wideband outside, which I will tell you about later on Skriðuklaustur. So our products are basically mobile applications. We have our own apps, 2 apps. We have Turf Hunt, which is for treasure hunt games, and Smart Guide, which is for audio tours and tour guides. And then we also make white label branded apps, meaning that we make templates. So white template apps that can be branded with client branding. So we can customize them and have them look as the client has made it. So it has the client's name and icon and is available in the App Store and Play Store. So the backend to our apps is the Creator CMS, the content management system that Skuli talked about earlier. It's a cloud-based content management system where you place pins on a map that represent the physical places where you want to trigger media content. So this content is like audio or video, text and challenges. And you can choose the radius. So when the player enters the radius, the app will trigger the before mentioned media content. The projects can be published in just a few seconds to our app, and you don't need to know anything about coding. So it basically enables anybody to publish a location-based project. And the user only needs to have internet connection when the product is downloaded. So it can also be used in places where mobile internet or connectivity is unavailable. Just shortly about our treasure hunt games. Sorry, 1 second. So our features is that we have multimedia content as in image, audio, video, and text. It's very easy to add multiple languages. So if you want to make a game or a tour and add instructions in other languages or questions and challenges, that's a breeze. We have an online scoreboard, as Skuli mentioned before, and you can award points and prizes for finding challenge locations and earning points. The types of challenges that we have are memory card games, both default and custom, so you can add your own photos if you like. We have multiple choice questions, single answer written text questions. Then we have photo challenges. So either it's take a photo of yourself here, or you can add a sticker to the photo or draw on the photo. And you can also draw on a canvas. So shortly about the Scene project. So as most of you are probably familiar with, Scene was is a collaborative digital heritage project between partners from Norway, Iceland, Ireland, Northern Ireland, and Scotland that aims to transform people's experiences of outdoor heritage sites through technology. So Locatify has been involved with Scene since the beginning and has been involved as a technical solution partner for trialing various technologies for heritage organizations. So contributions included location-based content for heritage sites, trialing ultra-wideband at Skriðuklaustur for precise positioning of a 3D model in mixed reality, and an augmented reality treasure hunt game. The 3D model in mixed reality, I think it was in the Skriðuklaustur buildings, the cloister, right, Skule? Yes. So, and the good thing about the ultra wideband is it's very accurate. So you can get an accuracy of 20 centimeters. So you can walk around and the app will trigger the right content in the exact correct place. So it's a very interesting technology. So playing our part in using mobile technology as a tool for learning. So smartphones often get a bad reputation and tend to be associated with isolation, but by connecting learning to physical places, by encouraging exploring and solving clues, you can gamify basically any learning experience and also lend an aura of informality to any learning activity. But even if treasure hunt games are a great way to encourage learning and exploration within a physical environment, being on location is the only way to explore and learn. So we recently added a virtual feature to our apps where you can play a treasure hunt game remotely. You can access it from basically anywhere in the world. And you either place pins on a map, and if you want to connect them to a physical place, you can do that. You can place the pins on the map and then you can click on the map. So you don't have to be in a triggering radius to trigger the content. You can open it manually. Or we can also have it in a list in the app, making it a more traditional quiz game. Just wanted to show you the Christmas demo that I made. If you download Turf Hunt, you can have a look and you can either scan this QR code or use the invitation code Christmas demo. And it was basically a demo game that I set up to show how the virtual feature works. I made different challenges in different countries, quite silly questions, but also about, cultural questions from about Christmas traditions from each country. And so please do have a look. Just shortly about the projects that are ongoing with our technology. So we have a school organization in Hawaii and Japan that use our product for groups of school children. The other day, somebody proposed to their fiance using our app. It was very fun to be included in. We're making an app for the Chamber of Commerce in the Chicago neighborhoods, which was voted the coolest neighborhood in the United States. So that's going to be fun. We also have a Meet Nature app. Let me show you here. It's for educating people about the forest, nature, and cultural history in the north of Sweden. So you can tell the stories on hiking paths, landmarks, and out on the river. And we're also making a bike tour app in Miami, which I can't show you because it's not ready yet, but just to give you a bit of insight into what can be done with our technology. And that's it from me. So thank you for listening.
Cool. Thank you, Sam.
Thank
you. You have Locatify has expanded, hasn't they? Or their reach is pretty far. If you're in the States, Miami, and then did you say, what was it, Japan?
Yeah, no, we're everywhere. Really. And also the team is based everywhere. I mean, I'm in Sweden, even if I'm Icelandic, and we have developers in China and in Tunisia. and then the founders in Iceland. So we're everywhere.
That's very cool. Well, I definitely have some questions to kind of build a discussion if you two are ready for it.
Absolutely.
Just we'll see how far this goes and then see if Jonathan can join us. But one of the things that you said, Sif, that I really, keyed in on was your informal, that it's informal, a method for informal learning. And I think that's interesting because it's putting on top of museums, which are also informal learning centers, or think of formal learning centers as school and universities and college. And so you're expanding on the informal learning methodologies as you were of museums. How do you see that like continuing and progressing with museums following their best practice or heritage organizations following best practice, and then you guys aligned with that to support it, but then how do you see that continuing on with technology developing and continuing?
I think I'm not an expert on children, but I think, when you turn something into a game, it makes everything more fun. And, and I think also, I just remember from being a kid when I went to school, as soon as something is formal, it's a formal kind of way of teaching. You're not so eager to take part of it. So I think this informality changes the whole experience. And so our founder is a teacher, and that's basically the core DNA of the company, I think, is this just enabling. So I think it's just going to continue and continue. Like Skuli said, I mean, games are becoming the new normal. And I don't know if I'm answering your question really. But
no, definitely. Well, and because I guess, museums are already multimodal spaces. You have mixed media, you have different kinds of presentations. So then the different kinds of game formats, like you were saying, Skuli, it doesn't have to be just on a cell phone or just, it can be any form that then disrupts that very didactic way of dissemination.
Yeah, I mean, isn't it all about the magic circle that is so often brought up in when we're thinking of game design? I mean, it's just like when you're reading a book, then you sink into the atmosphere and the environment of the book and the imagination. And it's the same with if you are visiting a museum or a heritage sites, if you can have something that triggers you to actually, to spark your imagination in a way, and that really can take you into another world in a way, and let you experience and learn in new and more inspiring and interesting ways than just if you are listening to a guide or something. But of course, a live guide, there is nothing that can top a really, really good storyteller. That we all know that, but we can use the technology to help with the imagination and to help us to recreate and imagine the past and how things were.
I think it's also about, okay, so I'm a millennial, and never in my life have I been on a guided tour. I wouldn't even think of it. It's not something that I do.
Why not?
But it just has never crossed my mind. I think it's probably a generation thing. But for me, downloading an app where I can get information about where I am, that's something that I would definitely do. So I think, this has the potential of reaching a much bigger audience and telling stories to more people, because live guides are probably amazing, and I should definitely give them a chance. I have nothing against them. It's just not something that's crossed my mind. But I think, yeah, so, this way we have a way of reaching more people and making it more accessible and easier to interact with the surroundings. So I think it's a really good addition, at least.
Well, it can be not just one or the other, right? It could be, you could have both, and you could have the live guide using maybe the gaming system or some kind of game format to then, give a bit more of a richer experience to people.
Absolutely, and I think we had in one of our branded apps, we had a feature where you could know where the actual live guide was at every time. So it was being used also with the real guide person. So you can, I think, the only thing stopping you is your imagination. You can do whatever you want, I think, if you're creative.
It's very important also in this that, systems like the Locatify system, it actually gives you the opportunity to disperse people to other places. You are not, it's not just on a small area. You can always use it to send people just, over the whole world now. And when you have opened the option of just playing on the screen, you don't have to be on the side. But that is one of the things that I find most important in this, that really to usually you have some museum or a heritage site which is located on a special, it just has its own fast rooted place, and you can visit it, but it is always in the context of something else. So there are always some stories or folklore in the surroundings that is related to this heritage site or to this museum. So by using game systems like Locatify's system, you can actually send people to explore the surroundings and learn more about the thing that they maybe got the first thing to know about at the heritage site or at the museum. So you are on a journey. You are actually, it gives you the opportunity to put you on a journey.
Mm-hmm.
And about that, like you're saying linking to other places and maybe continuing their journey beyond a museum. What about linking to other museums or linking to other collections? Because, so often one organization, one institution it's not a silo. Their collection or stories, narratives are linked to larger narratives or to other institutions or to other collections, are all together, so are connected. So how would you think then something like that with gaming and with your apps? Because obviously you're saying that you're global and people can access it, but what about linking it together with other organizations?
I think you can use hyperlinks in our content. For example, anywhere where there's text field input, you can add a link. So if you want to link to other places, to other even to other games, you can. So I don't know. I don't think there is really any limits. You can do whatever you want. And for example, like our plans and our games, there's no maximum number of challenges or points, for example. So you can also just make a really, really big tour and include many museums if you want, or games. So definitely you can link whatever you want.
Yeah, that is really inspiring to have that opportunity, and it brings also to my mind the the idea of crowdsourcing heritage preservation and recording of heritage sites and things like that. That is also something that we can gamify in a way, because there is a lot of heritage information that we have all around us, and which are maybe only known by few local people, but by making it possible for them to record it with photos or tell a story about it or things like that, you can actually crowdsource this preservation of heritage, and such things can easily be gamified. We can think of, for example, here in Iceland, we have a very strong tradition of hiking, and there are hiking associations, and that the hikers are really interested in the heritage and the story of the land that they are exploring. So we can raise a competition between hiking associations or hiking groups. So they have to record as many remains or catch as many stories as they can, and share it then on a platform. And so the game element is in us all, at least most of us, I believe, even us that like the live guides as well.
Because gamification is a spectrum, isn't it? You know, that's just pretty much if there's an objective of some kind. So it doesn't have to necessarily be, you know, where you competition, or you think of, you know, like a multi-step and multi-role game. It can just be like a self-driven objective that then, you know, and so someone who maybe is not interested in it being like a game, there is some kind of I don't know, a journey with then some kind of understanding to reach at the end. So then that can be developed in all kinds of ways, and where somebody may not even be, you know, realize that they're playing a game. They are just trying to achieve something, a goal that was set,
yes,
to be able to learn more.
Yeah, I mean, it's there are. I heard about one museum here, or a center for the in a way the medieval times here in Iceland, that is going to have role play all the time in every day in the summer, and where you can actually then of course dress up and get some challenges or tasks to do, and that is just one way of doing it. I mean, then we have of course people and people that are traveling and want to have a part of their journey some game, like there's a huge group around the geocache, which is and that's all around the world, and you just want to find the little relics or the items that the geocache community has planted in some places, in some peculiar places, and that is then it's just a part of the travel of so I believe you're right, Sue. I mean, the younger generations, they just look at it as it's just normal for them. It's just part of the life. I mean, to play computer game or take part in some geocache or do some role play or go to an escape room or it's all there. So why shouldn't we in the heritage sector not be thinking of this as something that we can use for education and to communicate the cultural heritage?
Yeah.
Well, and part of the informalness, of the learning is that if you add in collaborative learning and experiential learning, like you were saying, Scully, of doing, then whether that's, digital or in the physical, dressing up and, acting or using your smartphone to be a guide or to facilitate the game, it usually you're doing something, which means that learning is happening, and learning is happening through a richer experience as opposed to just absorbing or reading, just that passive. You're becoming active. So then you are creating experiences and you're gaining new knowledge that way. Do you guys sift? Do you see then with museum, when you're doing museum almost guides, but you're doing it like a game, that's what the museum is looking for? They're not looking for something that's just duplicating what they already have. It's something that adds on to then their offerings and for deeper learning.
I think the thing with our platform is that it's basically it just comes down to what the publisher, the person with the license wants to do. So absolutely, if they want to have it as an add-on and add a game element to an already established tour, they can do that. So we just provide the means basically. But whatever museums or heritage sites do with it, that's up to them.
What about you then, Scully, as a heritage person from a heritage organization?
Yeah, I mean it's of course the platform like the management system of Locatify. It's a new media for us to communicate through, but from the experience here, I would say that we usually end up creating something new when we are really putting the games together than build on something old and just put it in there. I mean, it's because it's you have to create the narrative and gamify the story in a way. But also this technology you mentioned, Siv, the ultra wideband, which is this precise and accurate system for locating the instrument or the phone that you are working with, the media or the person. Mm-hmm. We did this experiment here in the Cine project to try to actually, because we have this reconstructed model in virtual reality of the monastic buildings, then we wanted to be able to take that model actually out into the real world, into the field where the ruins are. And so by putting up this antennas and using the sensors for the ultra wideband, we were trying to make this actually area that we could play within and go in the phone from room to room in the virtual reality model, but out in the nature. And well, it didn't succeed totally, but we were close to it, and but we have to develop it a little bit more. But I think actually this idea of being able to have this mixed reality is something that is going to give totally new horizon in a way to what we are, how we can actually communicate the heritage on site, out in the nature, out in the surroundings. And so mixed reality, augmented reality, everything that gives us the opportunity to play with the heritage, where actually in the context where the heritage is rooted, where the story took place, where the artifact was found, and either if you are doing it in a guide, in a guiding application, or in a game application, it really will create something new and newer aspect to the communication of heritage.
I think this, when I was reading about Sina, about this museum without walls, I mean, depending on the need for accuracy, I mean, if you would only just use GPS, which is obviously as accurate as ultra wideband, but I think it's an amazing concept that you can be out in a field and there's no wall around you, there's nothing, and you can still have you know, like a segmented area where, you know, your phone will trigger a notification and maybe tell you that you know, this happened here, and even if you look around you and there's nothing else to signal it, you can use the technology to give somebody that information, and it may not necessarily be a game, but you know, you can communicate without walls, without posters, without text anywhere. You know, it can just be, you can be standing in a field with nothing around you and still have access to this information. Mm-hmm. So I think the technology is really interesting when it comes to that.
Well, I don't know if you wanted to say anything, but Ian is on the call, and Ian's from my research group and has done quite a lot of work with the CNA project and other projects, and with Security Cluster with the virtual reconstruction of the monastery. I didn't know if you wanted to say anything then about the reconstructions, but then also not like the mediums, the format for them, because it can be in like just an immersive exhibit, but then like Scully was saying about taking it out and getting it to then replicate the real, because real and virtual, you know, they are connected. But about the museum without walls.
Yes, so I was also involved in the, of course, we were using the app with the ultra wideband to line up the locations. But yeah, in addition to that, the reconstruction we created that we used for that. So we also created an immersive exhibit that's in the museum where Scully is, and yeah, we've created a number of those for Cine and other projects where either you control using an Xbox 360 controller, or we've been also using Oculus headsets into an environment that includes the reconstruction, and then usually some reconstruction usually with a tour. It's developed the way we do it over time, but now usually there's a free roaming environment with a tour that has descriptions of the area, so you can go through the guided tour, or you can just wander about your own, and also some additional media. Sometimes, depending on the specific exhibit, sometimes we put in real world photosphere tours, or not. Usually a video, so that if people don't want to interact with the exhibit, they can still get some nice experience, and the 3D objects related to the exhibit is also, I think, we've included.
Yeah, it's really interesting because we have this, as you were saying, Ian, we have this reconstruction here for people to play with it, and that has nothing to do with age, actually. How much fun the people have in actually using the virtual reality and putting on the goggles and using the controllers and then roam around in the buildings. And I, from my perspective, I think it's important that we think of giving the opportunity to all this, and we shouldn't be so always thinking about the authenticity of of the digital reconstructions that we are making and then playing with in virtual reality environment, because it is something that triggers the experience and the interest of people in the past. So just like we write academic studies and academic thesis and publish it just for the academy, we also make then often some books of the same about the same topic for the public. And I think we should think more about, in the context of heritage, that we should make reconstructions, more reconstructions for the virtual heritage, for the virtual reality, for the public, not just always beyond and say that, oh no, we cannot publish this. We don't have we don't have the full information to make it as it was, because we can come close, but we can never come to 100% of how some reconstruction is actually a replica of some building that was lost many centuries ago. So let's play with heritage. That's my motto.
Well, and that's the beauty of working within the digital domain, is that once it's created and it is a digital entity, you can always come back and rework it and rejig it, make it newer, use better technology, add on to it.
Jorge is there. Hand raised.
Yeah. Well, I joined the Cine project at the end stage, more or less, so I wasn't lucky enough to enjoy the gamification experience and Localify. So I was wondering, since some of us will be in Iceland next month, if we will have the opportunity to play around with it. But then Sif mentioned that we can play it remotely from anywhere in the world, so that's covered.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, but it's a setting. So the public, the person who publishes the project, he needs to put in the settings either using location technology or without. So if it's without, then it's virtual. So. But definitely, you should contact Steinun and Leifur before you go to Iceland. So
yeah, then you will visit me here.
Yeah.
so you will. I will give you some free time just for playing and roaming around in the medieval environment here.
Cool. Also, I wanted to mention that I'm a millennial too, and I go on guided tours everywhere I go.
I'm sorry. You're millennial and you do guided tours?
Yeah.
I
do too.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe I just decided it was a millennial thing. Maybe it's just how I was raised. I've just never been on a guided tour. So sorry, I didn't mean to assume it was my millennialness.
I think.
Oh, sorry, Chris.
Okay, so do we have the third speaker?
Hey, Jonathan.
Hey, everybody.
So sorry about the time
Oh,
zones.
no, that happens all the time. We're working internationally, right?
Exactly.
It's 7 a.m. on a beautiful Montana morning. Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Richter. I have been working at Salish Kootenai College, which is a tribal college in northwestern Montana, for about 8 years as the department chair. Hey, there's my alarm. I need to do something right now. It's let's see, up on the Flathead Indian Reservation, which is the Salish and Kootenai peoples, and chair of the Digital Design Technologies department there, teaching students. About 80% of them are tribal members, not from Salish Kootenai College, but from all over the United States, various tribes. But teaching them creative and digital skills, and a lot of it driving back and forth from Missoula, Montana, where I live with my wife and family. It's about 70 miles each direction, but I needed to really be part of the community, and that's hard to do when you're driving back and forth. So we hatched this program called Flathead Tech for Good, which grounds technology use in cultural or situated cultural understanding to solve sort of capacious, big world, community problems. So we started off, let's see if I get my head around. Oh yeah, with food. So we created a game on food sovereignty. So the tribal people, are a proud people. They have many traditions. Their language has been going on for tens of thousands of years. But of course, many of you know the story of the United States government and what they did to the native people. But so on these reservations, they really strive to be sovereign nations, independent nations, capable of their own direction and leadership. But to be a sovereign nation, you have to have some sort of control over your own food supply. So being able to make choices. So that, coupled with things like climate change and just a variety of food insecurity things with the way shipping goes. There's a lot of these places on the reservation are what you'd call food deserts. So there's maybe a convenience store or maybe a fast food place, but there's very little healthily prepared food. There's nowhere to get fresh produce or whatnot. So food sovereignty is the idea of the tribe taking control of their own food resources and doing it in a culturally specific way. So we partnered with a company called Native Teaching Aids, which is actually local to the reservation, and became pretty good friends of mine over this process over the years. And we created some paper prototype board games. One of the classes that I teach in my digital design technologies program is game design. And quite honestly, that's why a fair number of students sign up for the program, is they're so interested in games. But they start off with a paper prototype to work out the game mechanics. And the game mechanics are not easy, as most of you know, to work with. But when you are forced to use paper, it helps it because it's not so plastic, and it's not like you can do anything in the world. You have to kind of conform to physics. So I'm not sure I can actually walk and chew bubblegum at the moment, so I will try to find that image, but I might need to send it to Catherine, who can distribute it to you later. I do have some PowerPoints, but I'm just a little bleary. I'm preparing to go to Vienna for our 8th annual international conference for the Immersive Learning Research Network, and my head's exploding a little bit. So I apologize for being so on the riff here. But we created this board game, and this is with not just my students, but community members, experts in food. So we had the Healing the Jocko Valley Food Sovereignty Project, which is led by now Tribal Chairman Shelley Fayant, as well as the Montana Food Cooperative with a kids co-op. So we actually entertained students from the middle school and high school, as well as the college and members of the community in a series of game jams. And we opened it with a prayer. We had a blessing by the tribal member. And we situated a lot of our work using native language. And we because there's not a lot of game design experts on the reservation, I wouldn't even call myself a game design expert, but we decided to kind of stretch this process out over a year, over a school year. So we did 3 consecutive interconnected game jams, one in the fall to get our arms around the problem, to brainstorm the issues, hear from the experts who are dealing with the community issues, and storyboard and work together, support each other to create. I mean, you get these young kids standing up with their butcher paper and talking about their ideas. And some of those ideas actually made it into the game. So very collaborative, very open community. The fall was for brainstorming and get our heads around the idea. The winter time is for storytelling, and it's really about regrouping some of these teams that went off to do some work, pulling them back in and getting them resituated, maybe reorganizing some of the teams. Again, like really diving into the cultural aspects. Here in Montana, the Salish and the Kootenai people only told certain stories when there's snow on the ground. So you cannot tell creator stories of coyote or fox when there's not actually snow on the ground. So wintertime was a good time to do storytelling. And so there were a few times where there was definitely snow on the ground, and we took the opportunity, changed our plans, and rounded up some of the elders who had, or some of the tribal members who had volunteered, and did some of that storytelling. So that kind of got integrated into our game design a little bit, just because of that emphasis and cultural respect. So in the spring, we released the game to the public. So the game was more or less done, still had a few embarrassing spelling errors on the board, and it wasn't great, but it was great. So we released that to the community. The community liked it so much, they actually generated some more funding so we could create more copies and distribute them. The next year we did What is Life, and created another game around making sure the fish in the lake don't die from various aspects. So we integrated a lot of science as well as culture. The Flathead Lake Biological Station helped us out. The third year we did community health, which was broader, including the food and the water, but more of the community. And then we were going to do climate change, and then 2020 hit, and there was a whole nother community problem that everybody realized, this pandemic. So we've actually not been working together face to face at all since then. We've done a number of different projects, including a school garden project, which was funded by the United States Department of Agriculture, to create school gardens in each of the gardens in the community, again, raising native plants and teaching traditional ways of using those native grasses and native plants. And then the students a couple of times have hosted meals that they serve that were prepared in a traditional way back to the community with parents, etc. And during the pandemic, the school communities, the school gardens were not, they weren't doing much because everyone was sheltering in place at home. So spring of 2020, we decided to pivot a little bit, and we built 54 boxes, garden boxes, and delivered them to the homes of these students, and with curriculum and game activities, and then met with them on Zoom, which wasn't super successful, but we delivered the 50 boxes with the soil and the seeds, and that was really cool that the families got to participate in that. So that's been our current Tech for Good project, is that garden project. That we're just wrapping that up now, and it includes an annual calendar that we've developed with following the seasons. So the native people follow the seasons very carefully. And then, so there's food, health. It's also the United States Department of Agriculture's healthy and sustainable foods practices curriculum. We've designed and developed that in there to help encourage the Native families with the kids leading to focus on locally sourced healthy foods that are culturally appropriate and resonating. So that's going to be kind of the end of this project. We did get a 1-year no-cost extension on the grant because of the pandemic, thank goodness. But that'll be done in August. So that's kind of a whirlwind elevator pitch of what we've done for our Tech for Good projects. We've had to go to the Salish Culture Committee, which is held at the Roundhouse in St. Ignatius, Montana, and present these ideas to them to make sure that they were culturally appropriate. Each of the tribes, as you might know, the United States put together traditional enemies onto the same reservation so that they would kill each other off, kind of thing. So there's 2 different culture committees. We worked through the Salish Culture Committee, presented with the Kootenai as well, but haven't had as much success there. But that the Salish Culture Committee approved these things, and we've got a couple of journal articles that are coming out of it after gathering the research. The whole thing has been done on an indigenous research model, which at the beginning of this, I was like, so is that a qualitative research model or a quantitative search? How does that work? And they're like, well, it's neither. Like, teach me how, I don't understand. Basically, the model kind of follows traditional cultural practices where you as a member of a tribe are not an independent person. Your ideas don't come from nowhere. You are part of this community. So oftentimes in a tribe, they will send off a young person who's in that age of becoming an adolescent, and they will send them off on a task or a journey where they need to prove themselves. So they'll, take off in a canoe across the lake to go hunting and then come and bring something back. Or in Hawaii, they go off into the middle of the ocean to make it back. And the idea is that the researchers are leaving the community to go do some different things, but the whole time they're taking the research questions, they're taking the methodology, they're taking their initial data, and they're giving it to the tribal elders or the culture committee and sharing it with them right away. So it's really participatory in terms of, is this a good question? Is this the right data? And then how will we use this data? You go around the circle, and when you complete your research, you literally give it back to the community because it's not really yours. You were the one who was stewarding that, and it's your contribution. So we've really tried to embody that model a lot. And as an aside, this has been very challenging for me because I'm not Native at all. And so I've had to be, I enjoy being a steward and an ally. But my, 6'3" white guy ego, it's hard to check sometimes. But it's been an incredible journey for me learning, and they've given me far more than I've ever been able to give to them. So was that at all in the ballpark of what you were looking for, Catherine?
Yeah, I think it was, John. Don't worry. And at 7 a.m., just woken up. It's pretty good.
Thank you. My coffee is not yet done, so
oh, no.
I'll get it. It's fine.
No, I think what you brought to the discussion, I know you just joined and you didn't get to hear the beginning and what Sif and Scully were talking about, but I think you're bringing the culture and community part into it, and as more using the games as then a medium for culture and community, like self-development as well too, or learning for the community and the students in the community.
Yep. Yeah, I think in the, you know, we're always trying to create, excuse me. We're always trying to create artifacts that other people will use and say, wow, I've learned something. You're all so great and experts. And oftentimes you have to do that. It's very difficult and challenging to do something in a co-design model. But there is, I think, a lot to be gained from engaging the community in co-design, you know, even if it's at a rivulet sort of smaller, you know, prototype level, to get that feedback and to get that buy-in and to get perspective, especially cultural perspective, that you may not have or see when you're so close up to your product design.
And then when it gets, you know, beyond the community, you know, if the board games or I know there's the language learning card game as well. Right. I have one.
That's right.
Yeah.
I got one on my desk here.
But it uses the best points of learning a language, which isn't, you know, someone just, that.
Have a visual.
You know, someone just telling you, and it's all passive and very didactic. It's getting you to do something and to start building a bit of knowledge and competency. I mean, with this was language learning, but it's also just language acknowledgement and development. Yep. You know, it's not necessarily you're going to be fluent. It is the way to discover and to learn more of culture as well. That's
right. And then in addition to that, Catherine, that's absolutely 100%, that the native people's culture and language are so situated on the land. So as you go to different places on the reservation to do different activities, you learn a lot as an ally, someone who's not embedded in these things, like how some of these, you know, the place names and the stories that those place names represent. And you catch a little, they won't tell you everything, you're not allowed, but you do learn so much of that, and that context is so deep and so rich. So it really helps you in that your understanding and that development as well. Yeah.
I open it. Sorry, I was taking control. But if Scully or Sif, if you have any comments or anything, or to link it into what you were speaking to.
Really interesting to hear about this, John, and inspiring. Also, I mean, and what you were saying here in the end. I mean, about this. I mean, how even this game of teaching the language then brings you out into the landscape and opens up some information about that. It's I think that is something that I can really connect with here in Iceland.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, it there was something that took off in my head when you said it. So it's just it started spinning now.
Yeah. Nice.
Cool.
Really cool.
Sorry. So was this an actual card game then? Actual paper cards, or
it's actually a board game. We printed the board on a giant mouse pad, so you can roll it up and put it in a tube.
Okay.
And then there are pieces for the food you're developing that you put. So you're a tribal board around the board game, and you each work a certain section of the reservation, and you have to collaborate, because in year 5, the food supply gets shut off, and you want everybody to not starve. Is the game. So there's the mouse pad with the pieces and cards. So you put a little card pack in the tube, the little chips, the little plastic pieces that go in it, and the mouse pad. And I wish I had. I don't see it. I'm so sorry.
In the garage.
Just fun to hear.
I'm sorry.
No, it's just fun to hear and interesting to hear. Because I work with technology, so it's fun to also hear about a physical game.
Yeah. Digital is my preference also, but just learning, working with kids in the community, and boy, they're so excited about, we're gonna have things that go, and then it's gonna fade to a whole new, that's gonna cost about $1 million, So we did start with the prototyping, and then just realized how great that was as a medium. And then this game company that does physical board games, we kind of went in that analog direction, and it's been really, really fun and fulfilling, I think, for the whole community. But the digital is, I'm always like, we need to go to the digital. We have done some virtual reality prototyping of a couple of spaces, and through these efforts, we're moving towards. They've got a model of the whole reservation that they're working with that's been done on LiDAR, and that's fun. But we haven't really gotten very far with the digital design department. Assets in Unity and a couple of other things, but not.
So AR assets then.
We worked with, we did an augmented reality art museum, a native, because we're connected to the arts department, and they used, what was it, AR? There was just it's not on the market anymore. AR, I can't think of the name of that software. It was free, and you could trigger, you'd scan over the piece of art, and it would trigger the Wikipedia page or the et cetera. They took it off the market, which is too bad because it was really great. ThingLink is the one that we've been looking at recently. And
just to clarify, I don't necessarily prefer digital. I just work for a digital company.
Right.
So that's just why I'm asking.
Sure.
But definitely, I think there's always a charm to a physical game that you can touch and gather by the table. Yeah.
It allows you to kind of create that full system a little, with the constraints of the physicality. But it locks you in a little bit more, of course. So, yeah.
Jorge, were you trying to say something before? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. There are a couple of questions on Facebook from the viewers. Daniel Tool says, great event. Where is the level of gamification which exploits the heritage or culture? And what are the potential benefits for our communities?
Ooh, so double-fold. When does it go too far? What is it, just a fun thing as opposed to an actual asset? And then I guess kind of going off of then the community benefits to the community. So I'll put that to everybody.
I mean, it's this is always the question of this balance between fun and the hard learning thing, and yeah, I mean, I think we see that always. I mean, it's just also in all education. I mean, if you manage to make it interesting and some fun in it, then it's more likely that you will learn something from it, and you will actually reach out to the audience. And then if it is too funny and just gaming around, then you might miss the point. And so it's a hard balance. It's tough.
Yeah, definitely. And maybe you don't know that balance until you've already kind of made a first draft of it, or you've.
I think it's really hard actually to know that balance. I mean, it's even if you do some studies and do polls and get some answers. I mean, yeah, maybe can figure out something, but it's nothing that you can actually nail or just okay. It just has to be like this, and then it fits all, and it's the perfect balance. So
also because it depends on the individual taking part, so it's hard to say. But I think like a true marketer, I like to think about the target audience, and so I think in every aspect you need to know who are you doing this for, and why, and what do you want to come from it. So a game that's perfect for Icelandic families or Icelandic 6-year-olds is not going to be perfect for a teenager or a tourist, or so yeah, it depends on the target.
That's a good one. Yeah, I teach my students to take a problem, like, create a scene. What do you want to do in your game, or especially a learning game? What do you want them to learn? And they write that description, and then I teach them to pull out all the verbs, to focus on just the verbs, because that's where the game mechanics can be. So there's oftentimes a tension between learning and fun, as was said, but and that tension oftentimes goes in one way or the other. Game designers who want to sell their games, they go towards the fun, and sometimes they might start with an idea to create an educational game, but quite honestly, a lot of learning is hard to make fun. There's learning some things is kind of hard, True. So aligning those game mechanics with the fun and keeping it on track with the educational objectives is very tricky. Yeah, I guess that's. I want to throw that out there.
I mean, I get upset when I've realized I'm nearly out of time for my day to do my Duolingo, and I have to do my Duolingo, and I'm just angrily doing my game. But it's because there is that element of expectation, and you want to do it because you don't want to, lose your streak, and then but you're still learning. You just must be a little upset about it that day.
Resented a bit.
A little bit, but then you're still like, oh, I don't want to lose my spot. So
right.
It's definitely optimizing on the competition, and then also self-competition.
But then it ends up being a positive, because you will still learn even if you don't want to. So
when you find that balance,
yeah,
it's quite a good thing. That second part of the question about the potential benefits for the community, because we were talking before, Jonathan, talking about then mostly within a museum context, but then we kind of alluded to the museum without walls, and then outside of a museum. But then I guess how would be in your two's scenarios, like have community input or have maybe use for the community beyond than just visitors to the museum, because I know Skuli, you have, lots of visitors that are international that will come to visit, but then, may never come again. So how can some kind of gaming or elements to that then be able to connect and drive home more with the community around you?
And it's even though that the visitors don't come back, they might send me some new visitors if they had a good experience and learned about how nice surroundings we have here. But for the local community, I think I think this way of actually communicating the heritage in some game-based way is really something that can be used much more that we do, and both through the schools and the families, but also, yes, also just with to strengthen the self-identity. I mean, it's that's one of the questions that we're always trying to get a good answer to. I mean, how can we, at least here in Iceland, I mean, we have this remote, sparsely populated areas with few people, and the new generations, they are not coming back from universities, and so our self-identity is not very high, and we need more. We need somehow to work with that, and game-based approach to heritage is one of the ways and tools that we have for it, from my perspective.
Could you gamify the Snorri program?
Yeah, I think that would be no problem to gamify the Snorri program. Yeah, I've had participants from the Snorri program here at the visitor center.
Yeah, my wife is half Icelandic. Her mother is full Icelandic, and so we've got a number of the nephews and nieces go. That is so cool, and that people can go there and tour and become part of the community for a little while. There must be badges or awards.
Yeah. Well, if it isn't, we need to produce it.
That's so cool. Yeah, I think the games can allow people to learn roles. They can take on the role of someone in the past, and they can think about the resource limitations or the use of the resources that were confronted from people in the past through the lens of that role. And that can have, I think, a good impact on the community, especially if it's aligned with some contemporary issues, climate change, or transportation, or it can help them to think about what it is in their communities now are similar, but yet also different from things within that game context. I think the repeat people coming back to the museum, if the game isn't too static, if it's not exactly the same every single time, then you'll get people to come back because they say, oh, they changed the game this week, or every single time I play, I can play from a different role. So yeah, sometimes when you play a game, you have to choose a particular perspective in the game, but then if you really had fun, you want to come back and try it from a different perspective. So I think those could be some keys or possible pathways to explore.
Very nice. Well, I'm just aware of the time, so I will open it up to all of you if there's any lasting remarks, last comments that you want to mention about gamification and its role in communicating within heritage and culture. It's not necessarily saying it needs to be within a museum, like John's discussion, but also even with that point that we were at the very end, it doesn't have to be within a museum or within an institute, within a center. It can be out with of it. It can be, without walls. It can be online. It can be in person. It can be analog. That it's maybe what people think of gamification. Gamification is not really the correct term, or not correct term, but just the term alludes to maybe more than it needs to be too, since it is a bit of a spectrum. Well, that was my last bit, but if anybody wants to open to comment, sorry.
It was just good final remarks from you. I just say that, I mean, I just think we often are too stiff and too much thinking about the accuracy and authenticity and the academic values, while we should be maybe to really connect with the past and get people and the locals to connect with the past. We should relax more and just give us the opportunity to play a little around with the heritage.
I think, because you use the word connect, and that's a word that I've been thinking about a lot, because, you are connecting people with stories from the past or physical places. And by feeling this connection, I think they also become more connected to their community. So, and I think gamification is just a way of making information more accessible and more, like I said, informal. So I don't think you really have anything to lose. I think it's a win-win.
I think that there's so many new possibilities. The new technologies that are emerging or have emerged recently and are on the horizon. They really do. They spell a whole new level of kinds of interaction and engagement that open up the possibilities for how you could do gamification with museums and also communities. At the Immersive Learning Research Network, we're trying to help the public, the world, to get their arms around all of these new possibilities with an evidence base. So we really try to cultivate high quality research that's coming out in computer science and game design and in the learning sciences. But we're also really trying to sort through all of these different technologies from a technical perspective, as well as a narrative perspective. So how can these be used for learning by engaging narrative? And then just from a broad perspective, just how engagement, so technical narrative and engagement are the focuses, the foci, for us to start developing these standards around immersive learning environments. We're collaborating with IEEE. But to me, in a sense, for the game perspective, that comes to design patterns, like using the new technology, whether, how do you interact? What are the tools that you need to use to make those interactions? And what kinds of stories do they create to start identifying all of the different game patterns or design patterns that are possible, and then using those as to see their fitness for a particular project. I can see a lot of museums and a lot of communities working in design charrettes, doing things similar to that, trying to figure out all this new stuff. How does it work or align with what we're doing? And then innovating from there. And I think that there's an incredible potential, but like a number of fields, culture and heritage is rooted in a lot of the past, and so it's really that juxtaposition of being able to balance those. I think it's fascinating to be able to artfully and authentically, pay homage to the realities of the past with these incredible new technologies that we could only dream of back in the Star Trek days.
Rad. Well, thank you, everybody. Skuli, Sif, and John, and Ian and Jorge, thank you for being on. There's our last webinar for PHIVE, the 5th one. We do things in PHIVE. It just has to happen. Our last one, I believe, let's see, is in 2 weeks' time. Jorge, is that correct? Or is it next week?
Next week.
Okay. I'm all thrown off, but that's fabulous. And I think it'll also be a combination with a Cupido, which is another project, webinar and discussion. So I think it'll be kind of like the last big webinar, and we'll put it all together as an ending for this webinar series. So thank you all. And because this is streamed on Facebook, if there's more questions or so, people can comment and answer. So thank you all for joining, and we'll see you later. Bye.
Thank you for inviting me. It was good.